Hey everybody, welcome back. Today we're looking at some bullies that got what they deserved. I met my old workplace bully whilst he was on a date. Go on. So back in June, I left a very toxic workplace of 8 years. I mainly left due to having a breakdown from being overworked. But this one particular person made working there even worse on top of the excessive work. This guy was 1 year younger than me. He was a 30-year-old man, the type of guy that appears to have peaked in secondary school. Very jock-like mentality and childish too. He was part of my team of 4. I was civil with him because I had to work with him, but he was my workplace bully. Apart from just the general workplace banter, this guy, let's call him Chris, was relentless with his teasing. What would usually be classified as playful always pushed to bullying from him, because he never knew when to quit. And if he noticed you were getting stressed or annoyed, he'd use you as a target of his teasing for the rest of the day. He would be super nice to you when it was just the two of you, but as soon as he had an audience, he picks his victim and will tease them constantly in what he would call playful. And if you ever got annoyed and stood up for yourself, he'd say he's only messing and make it out like he's the victim. He's that type of person. One specific thing that he absolutely lost any respect I had for him was when I was still working there. Some ex-employee wrote a very aggressive, very angry review on Glassdoor about the company. Just because this person used a phrase that I use, Chris thought the review was me. As much as I proved it wasn't me, didn't even have a Glassdoor account at the time, he was relentless with campaigning around the office that I was the one that wrote it. I also believe he told the boss that I was the one that wrote it once I left, and that's why I didn't get any freelance work from them afterwards. What possible motivation would you have to do to write negative things about the company you work for online? Usually they make you sign like NDAs where you can't speak badly about the company. Not really even sure that that's legal, but go ahead. So after I left my workplace, my old teams still have a group WhatsApp, and I'm a part of it. And we still talk almost every other day on it. After I left, the group chat went a bit quiet. I assumed they made a new one of just them, which is fair, but the chat kept going occasionally. I unfollowed and unfriended Chris on Facebook and Instagram because I didn't want to be associated with him anymore. In the middle of the group chat, he broadcasts,
"Why did you unfollow and unfriend me on Facebook?"
Cause you're a dick. You're a dookie head. While also adding me. Oh, that's aggressive. That's a bit much. Just take the L, buddy. He wrote this message at 6:30 a.m. I woke up to it broadcasted in the group chat. It pissed me off. So I was honest and said that he's a bully, and instead of making a big thing of it, I'd rather just remove him from the equation. I also said it was immature of him to do this over the group chat and not in private. He didn't say anything. He left the group chat and blocked me. The group chat pretty much died after that. I was at the time
livid.
This 30-year-old man set fire to the group chat, saw what I said, and ran off. I thought it must be a blessing in disguise because I finally got to say what I wanted to him, and now I don't have to acknowledge him again. But I was wrong. Skip to 3 months later, me and my husband are walking through town and stopping off at a pub to get some grub. And lo and behold, I see Chris there with a new girl I hadn't seen before. I was feeling extra confident and decided to approach. I went and said, "Hey Chris, long time no see," with a big shisa-eating grin on my face. Chris looked like a deer in headlights, the perfect kind of red cheeks. I asked him,
"How are things? Are you doing well?"
And he replied in a very normal way, clearly not wanting the conversation to continue and looking awkward as hell in front of his new girl. She asked how we knew each other. I generously waited for Chris to say we used to work together. So I added, "Yeah, it's quite funny, really. Chris used to be my workplace bully. He's the reason why I struggled financially after I left my old job because he accused me of writing a hostile review to the company, which I proved I didn't do, and it lost me a lot of freelance work because of it." He was gobsmacked, face redder than a traffic light. The new girl clearly looking confused and uncomfortable. Neither of them responded. I didn't want it to carry on much longer as it wasn't really fair on her, but just to add salt to the wound. You add that salt, baby. I said, "So this is your new girlfriend, Catherine? Or is this Georgia?" What happened with Sarah since someone said you were still with her last week? All of those are completely true. He gets around. This girl goes from going confused to angry in the blink of an eye and just stares at Chris. I just say, "Oh, oops, I really put my foot in my mouth, haven't I? I better go. It was nice seeing you, Chris. And walk off. My husband, whilst he felt bad for the girl, which I did too, but to be frank, I might have saved her from inevitably being dumped by him a few weeks later if he gets bored of her, was very proud that I finally got my closure revenge on him. I'm living vicariously through you. It feels amazing. Like I feel petty as hell. But it felt good for there to finally be some consequences to this Chris guy being a... Wow, this blew up. Thank you, 99% of the lovely comments. I loved a few of your stories too about petty revenge. Naturally, there's 1% who don't believe anything that they read on the internet, and that's fair. A lot of the internet is BS, but this story is 100% from myself. You can check my post history if you must. I've talked about this toxic workplace before. I don't know why I felt like so stressed out reading that. I once saw my elementary school bully while I was on a date. I was bullied pretty much my whole life. She was working at a pizza restaurant. I was on a date with a guy. This was like later in life. Like this was maybe 20 years after we went to school together. And you know, of course she was being so nice to my date because they knew each other. As soon as she went away, I just spilled the tea. And that was one of the only times I have not left a tip. All right, I want to see what everybody else had to say about this. Living vicariously through you, OP. Since leaving my toxic work environment, I've dreamt of bumping into my bully and doing a similar happy to see you confrontation. See, the thing is like being a bully's not the same as it used to be. You know what I mean? Because now there's such a thing as the internet. You can bully on the internet for sure, like quite easily, and not really have your name attached to it.
However,
the internet's a scary place. Especially when you've done something wrong. I know this for a fact. Geez, to be able to run into my ex while she's on a date, I've thought about it, but to be honest, I've never been able to decide which crappy thing about her to share with the other person. The list is way too long. Just kind of have it in your back pocket, you know? Ready to go. Excellent. I give this bully revenge a shark puppet kiss.
Mwah! Good job.
Wanna bully me through high school, then cheat off me? I think not. Not directly my revenge, but something I witnessed firsthand at the end of my junior year of high school. To start with some background to add context of how big of a deal this revenge was. My high school was a public magnet school with a special program for
gifted kids.
All through the county I grew up in. During our junior year, we had to take a research practicum course that was crucial that we needed to pass to make it to senior year. The class only had 2 grades, our final project that took the whole year to complete, and our final exam, each worth 50%. Now, I put quotes around gifted kids because that term was very loose. A lot of the kids only made it in because they were able to pass the entrance exam. These kids were not able to make it through the program on their own. Now, to the story. In my grade was a very sweet but very shy and quiet girl. We'll call her Jan. Jan was a very nerdy, straight-A student, so she was a target for bitchy, mean girls in my grade. She was a little on the heavier side, and mean girls would snicker at her weight or clothes. She never wore makeup and always kept her hair in a messy ponytail, and I would overhear girls talk about how badly they wanted to
Fix her.
This always upset me because Jan was a kind girl with a big heart. She never seemed to let these people get her spirits down. That's because she knows that she's gonna be a billionaire someday. Now, in my junior year, your research practicum class, there was Jan, the biggest mean girl of our school that we'll call Regina George. How appropriate. One of her minions we'll call Gretchen, and 2 douchey popular guys. Toward the end of the school year, I noticed Regina suddenly being really friendly toward Jan. She would compliment Jan by telling her she looked pretty, or partnering up with her in class. I then started noticing that Gretchen and 2 boys started sitting near her and acting like she was their best friend all along. Yeah, that's because they wanted to steal her answers. Now came the day of the final exam. For our exam, we got a question sheet and a Scantron to put our answers on. They all sat near me, and I noticed that Jan was leaving her Scantron sheet visible so the other 4 could lean over and look at her answers and copy them. Whatever I thought. I saw people cheat like this all the time. Jan was done with her test and nodded over to the 4 people copying off her. They, one by one, went up to turn their exam in to the teacher. However, as soon as the last one handed theirs in, Jan quickly started erasing all of her answers on the Scantron and filling in the correct answers. She then turned in her exam with the biggest shisa-eating grin I have ever seen to this day. The 4 of them had to retake the class over the summer. Yeah. Yeah. I graduated high school over 10 years ago, and I still think of Regina and her minion faces when they realized the girl they bullied for years just beat them at their own game. There's this thing about being smart. Usually it means you're a lot smarter than your bully. Never underestimate the quiet, smart girl. I still keep in contact with Jan to this day. She lost a lot of weight and now works a really high-profile job where I know she makes bank. Of course she does. She also got married to another woman, and they live together in the same city I now live in. Good for you, Jan. Good for you. We love you, Jan. Kisses. Shark kisses.
Nom, 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 nom.
I wonder how often Jan looks back on this day and giggles to herself. Again, living vicariously through Jan. Oh, God. I wish I was petty enough back then. Don't worry, I'll be ready. It probably warms the cockles of her heart. It warms the cockles of my heart. Only an idiot cheats from a smart person, then doesn't think the smart person knows and compensates. That's what I don't understand. Like, they treated her like she was dumb. They didn't clock that maybe,
Oh, this really freaking smart, gifted girl knows that we're bullying her. Let's just, like, try and cheat off of her and pretend to be her friend.
no, she's smart. And you aren't. So, if you saw your bully later in life, out on a date, chilling, not suffering from the consequences of their actions, what would you do? Subscribe!